Stop trying to figure out that other person. Okay, what are we talking about here? We're talking about this obsessive dynamic we see on the internet and in person. And I've done this myself in my past, where we are constantly trying to diagnose, label, figure out the motives, get inside their head, whatever, of this other person. Usually it's the person we're either dating or just broke up with. Sometimes it'll happen for someone that we are thinking about dating, right? That we've had a little bit of chemistry with. And they play this trope in movies all the time where it's like, there's a little bit of flirtatious energy or something. And then there's this tee-hee-hee excitement of people being like, oh, does he like me? Does he not like me? Let's try to look at all the signs and figure things out. Yeah, this is an entirely unhelpful strategy. It is exciting. It has a lot of people that are basically fueled by this excitement. And when they will hear someone like me suggest that this dynamic is unhealthy or unhelpful, they get very resentful, very resistant. And that's sad. Because the truth is that it feels exciting because of the dump of stress hormones that are pushed into the bloodstream during this moment. There's this tremendous flood. You've got the cortisol and the adrenaline having to do with the kind of threat angle, that it's like, this could hurt or it could be super exciting. It feels exciting because of this flood of stress hormones that have just been introduced into our bloodstream by our kind of threat detection system. And people are like, what are you talking about, Kirby? It's like, yes. Like when we are desperately craving attention and validation and to feel like we're being loved and prioritized, when we have that desperate need inside us and someone shows up that we value, because it doesn't work if we don't value them, right? If I think he's cute, then his opinion suddenly matters. And if I think they're hideous, their opinion does not matter, right? So this only happens for the ones where we've already kind of looked at them and said we are valuing their opinion. So I'm desperately needing love and attention. And I've got this craving to feel wanted, chosen, prioritized. And then here's this person who's attractive, high social value, confident, whatever the traits are that I'm finding attractive in that moment. And then it looks like they're excited to see me. It looks like they're into me. What happens internally inside the nervous system is we say, oh my God, we are about to get this thing we've been craving for years. We've been desperately craving to sink into a feeling of total acceptance, total love, total prioritization and from another person, and from them to care for me and to give me what I want, to give me the attention I need and everything else. It's like there's this whole bundle of hungers that we have inside ourselves. And when the person that we think is valuable shows up and starts expressing interest, there's this huge flood of dopamine in the anticipation of reward. And that huge flood of dopamine puts us on this like huge roller coaster where we go way high and we're just so excited and we're like, oh my God, it's so amazing. That's the dynamic that's playing. So that's why we're trying to figure it out at the beginning side. It's like, can I figure out how to get the reward? Can I figure out, do I engage and then I get a yummy cookie? Or is this some kind of game that someone's manipulating me and I don't really understand the whole nature and I'm going to get hurt, in which case I'm going to pull away. See, this is the fundamental programming of the human mind and the human psychology. We are wired at the most basic level to run away from things that are painful or threatening and to run towards things that feel rewarding, nurturing, and safe. So that's the thing that's really going on here. And so now let's go back to the original question. Stop trying to figure that person out. So if we're in relationship, let's say we've gotten past the dating phase and now we're in relationship and there's aspects of this relationship that just don't quite feel right. It's just like they don't really text me as often as I wanted. Like when we're together, things seem kind of actually when we're together, things seem great. And he's present and affectionate and nurturing and but anytime we're apart, because he goes off to work and I go back home and whatever. Like when that happens, suddenly I kind of feel disconnected. I don't feel like I'm in this constant state of like loving warmth because I'm not getting this stream of messages through phone calls, text messages, voice notes, whatever. And so I feel disconnected and I want to feel connected all the time. I want to be in that place where it feels yummy and delicious and I want that all the time because it's like when you're here, I get it. And I know how good it can feel. And our whole first 3 months of our relationship were like that. And we're just like together all the time and we're constantly texting. And even when he's at work, he's messaging me. And that whole thing just feels amazing. But now it's not like that. Now it's like we've been together for a while and, you know, the energy has decreased and we kind of, the excitement of newness is kind of worn off. And now it's like he's my partner and I'm his partner. But it's just like he doesn't seem like he's just craving me with this hungry energy anymore. So I don't feel loved. I don't feel cherished and cared for. I don't feel prioritized. Maybe there's something going on. There must be something going on here. See, this is the dynamic. That's the setup that leads us to this point where the brain says, how do I get my cookie? How do I get the reward that feels so delicious? And what we've learned earlier on in our lives, usually through the classical conditioning model and kind of the way critique and punishment came from our parents, is we learned that like if I perform better, I will get the love and affection that I'm craving. If I do the right thing, they'll come towards me. They will lavish me with attention. They will lavish me with praise. So if I do the right thing, I don't do the wrong thing, I perform the way they want me to, I push away all the things that they dislike, which sometimes means I'm suppressing within myself the things that they don't like. Like if I do it all right, they'll love me. If I do it all right, they'll praise me. If I do it all right, they will like come at me with this warm, caring approval and validation. That's really what I want. I want that all the time. This is me, my voice as a child. I want that feeling every day, all the time. And I've discovered, again, this is me in the first few years of my life, my brain discovers that I only get that good stuff if I perform well, if I do the right thing. And in order to do that, I have to understand the rules. I have to understand what it is they like and what they don't like. I have to understand the nature of the game. What things do I need to stay away from? The hidden pitfalls? What things do I embrace, even though maybe they don't make sense now, but they'll pay off in a couple hours or a couple days? Like, this is the nature of the game. And because our parents' kind of love and approval was not ever present, because it was not unconditional, because it came with extreme criticism, judgment, separation, punishment through separation or isolation or pushing away, because there was punishment that came on so severely that it made me question whether or not they were actually still there for me. Makes me question if they still care, if they still love, if I'm still important to them, or would they just rather I go away forever? Would they rather not have me as a child? Like when these questions spin inside our mind as a child, years 1 to 3, the brain develops this reactive mechanism. And the reactive mechanism is I need to figure it out. I need to understand what the rules of the game are so that I can perform correctly in order to get the approval that I desperately want. And now we've got a neural pathway. Now we've got a survival strategy. Now we have a whole comprehensive, multifaceted mechanism for surviving in life and getting to the point where we want to be, getting the cookie of validation that we so desperately crave. And so what we see is that these people become adults and they get in these relationships that are almost always clearly, without any shadow of a doubt, unhelpful, unhealthy, and misaligned. Yet they stay in this situation believing that if I can just figure them out, what makes them tick, how can I do something that will get them to love me the way that I want them to? How can I understand what drives them so well that I can then morph myself into exactly what it is they want so that I can get the desperate cookie of validation, approval, and love that I've been craving this whole time. This whole situation is a reflection of the drama that played out with the parents. It is a little stage drama played out in my life in real time with my real emotions, where basically this person that I'm have a crush on or in relationship or just broke up with or whatever, this other person that I'm trying to figure out is actually like an actor that just steps on stage and they're a symbol for mom and dad. When I first started this, I remember reading in some book that our romantic partners are, was it archetypes, symbols, something like that, like proxies. They're like stand-in proxies for mom and dad. And I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, this woman is young and lithe and like effervescent and just giddy and fun, and that's totally neither of my parents. So I'm in this place with this person that I'm really overly obsessed with, and we're going through all sorts of difficulties. And then I'm comparing that to my parents, and I'm like, I don't see the connection. This person's nothing like my mother. This woman is nothing like my father. Right? That's me, like 10 years ago. And I'm like, how does this work? Like this, obviously, this theory is bollocks. And I do more research. I dig deeper. I begin to understand myself more clearly. I begin to actually understand the wounds that I had with my parents. So this relationship actually is long and gone, but it's still like the intensity of it was still like present with me. I'm just like, that one got me harder and deeper than almost any other. Yeah, more than any other. But I didn't understand it. And I spent years trying to figure her out. And I spent years trying to bend over backwards to turn myself into something that she would find acceptable. And then I began to actually understand the nature of the wounds that I had with my parents. And realizing that like there was this constant criticism. There was a constant judgment, this constant not enoughness. I could do the greatest thing. I could score the grade. I could, build the complex project that was far beyond any of my peers. And then it would be like, if I was lucky, it would be like, good job, but here's how it could be better. Because usually what would happen is just like, no, you got this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. Like, here, do this, do this, do this. And then eventually I would do those things and it would improve, right? But eventually, it took a long time, I began to understand that, like, oh, in doing that and executing the improvements that my father had suggested, once we got to the end, he could sit there on his little bench and kind of spin in his own pride that, like, I had, that part of it, that really is better. And it's better because I suggested those things. And so in that space of kind of chewing up on all these ideas and really getting in touch with the emotions of disappointment and grief, I began to understand that there was this pervading grief and sadness in that entire relationship with my father. And once I got really in touch with that emotion, that kind of flavor, because it was a complex texture of emotions in there. Once I really started getting in touch with those, then I was like, go back to this other relationship. I'm like, oh shit. That's the same web of complex emotions I'm feeling over there with this constant state of rejection and not enoughness. And when that happened, it's like the light bulb goes off over my head, recalling these things I'd read years ago and suddenly seeing the truth of it. That my subconscious had chosen that person. Wait. Not just chosen. What my subconscious had done is it saw the way that this web of judgment, disappointment, and not enoughness was already emanating inside me in reflection to her judgments and her kind of resistant to being present. And in that, my subconscious sees the same flavor, the same web of disappointment, judgment, and grief that I had with my father. And then what it does is it turns on all the attraction buttons. It creates this endorphin crazed, euphoric bliss at getting closer to this person over there. Because it's like, if we can get close to her and if we can figure her out, I never did figure out the nature of the game with Dad, and that time has passed. And I still have these wounds and this not enoughness and these latent judgments that live inside me. If I'm able to go over and get close to her and meld myself into just the ideal, perfect specimen of a partner for her, so much that she's able to push past her fears and push past her resistance and say the words that I want to hear and prioritize me over all other things and drop the criticism. Yeah, if I can do that, I will have closure. The wound will be resolved. I will finally have that yummy, dopamine-driven, euphoric joy of finally figuring out the equation that I couldn't figure out with Dad. And that, the promise, the illusion of that potential outcome is so powerful chemically, hormonally, and psychologically. It is so powerful that it will override almost all rational thought and personal intention in our lives. So we end up in these loops. We end up in these loops where we're constantly trying to figure that person out. Because if I can just figure them out, I can get to the point where like I understand what's going on. All the uncertainty goes away. Now have certainty. I now know exactly who they are and what they want and everything else. And in that certainty, I can then either earn their love and resolve the wound with dad, or I can reach the point of conclusion where they're an evil, villainous monster, and I can just push them out of my life forever. And then I can stand proud that I have protected myself from another demon. And this seems to be the way it plays out. When we watch the cycles and the type of language they use and the way they play the victim card, the way they name, blame, and shame, the way they attach labels. And I mean, I've done all this. Like, I'm super guilty of all these things. So this is not a situation where I'm like, you're doing the wrong thing. No, I'm saying, I've been there, buddy. I've been there, brother and sister, and it sucks. And I was stuck in that loop for a long, long time. And now that I'm out of it, I just desperately, with all the love of my heart, want to share with others that are stuck in that loop how to get out. And it's kind of this weird backwards thing that like we spend all this time focused on that other person. How do I get that person over there who is avoidant and emotionally unavailable? How do I figure out the answer to them so I can either get the love I need or demonize them forever? And somehow we think that that's going to be our pathway, our salvation to feeling loved and accepted. And to finally have the happy, joyful companionship that we've been wanting our whole life. But it doesn't. And we literally have millions of pieces of evidence to show us clearly, unquestionably, that path does not lead to life happiness. That path does not lead to better relationships. That path leads to hypervigilance. It leads to anxiety and depression. It leads to extended bouts of negativity, kind of a pervasive negative viewpoint on life and people and relationships. I mean, how many people have you met ever in your life? As an example, how many times have you heard someone just say, well, all men are pigs, or all men are just toxically masculine and all they care about sex and using people? Or on the flip side, you'll be like, oh, the only thing women want is money and they will leave you when you're at your lowest, et cetera, et cetera. It's like people will take this negative viewpoint and then they will just project it onto an entire gender because they've been hurt by one or two or three. There's 3 people in this entire multi-billion person world that hurt me so much that I'm now going to take the lessons I learned in that pain and project it to all people that have the same anatomy. That sounds a little unhelpful. That sounds like a dark, dark path of sadness and unresolved grief and resentment and pain. And that's what I want to do. I want to help people understand this stuff so they can avoid that path. Instead of trying to figure the other person out, turn it around and try to figure me out. Because it's not about the other person. It never is. Sure, maybe they're avoidant. They might even be an evil, nasty, narcissistic sociopath. That might be true. If you think that's true, walk away and never look back. They're not worth another breath, another second of your limited life on this earth. So why would we spend days and hours and books and programs and teachings and coachings and hour-long discussion with my friends. Why would I waste all that time trying to figure out someone who's so chronically misaligned with me, whose interactions are so dissatisfying? I need to get to the point where I'm asking myself the question, why am I staying another 10 seconds? Like, maybe they're a sociopath. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they're lovely and they're just at a rock bottom portion of their life. It kind of doesn't matter. What matters is just like, does this feel satisfying? Does this feel enlifting? Do I feel my life and my well-being and my psychology and my mental health going upwards in a positive, joyful, fun energy? And do I feel myself being lifted up and becoming a better version of myself when I hang with this person? If so, stay. You don't have to figure them out. It's like, what is it about me that is bringing me to this joyful state when I'm around this person? How does my beliefs about myself change? But that's usually not what's going on. What's usually going on is that the person is spinning downward and they become more vigilant and more concerned and worried and anxious and resentful and impatient and desperate, and it's kind of heavy energy, right? And if that's happening, why do you stay another 10 seconds? There's a door. There's a window. There's a life. And yeah, the logistics can be hard. It's like, oh, our finances are wrapped up. We're living together. We only have one car. We've got these kids together. Or maybe we are a family and they are my parents or brother, children. The logistics of it, I'm not kidding. I mean, like, I'm not going to, we'll go back to the logistics. The logistics of it can be very difficult, seemingly overwhelming. But we've seen thousands and thousands of people overcome those same logistical problems. It's hard. It is utterly challenging. But the payoff you get for walking away from that situation and finding a new grounded self and a freeing, joyful life is incredible. And when you find that path for yourself, that joyful, fun, playful energy rubs off into all the people around you. And then you get this positive feedback loop where every aspect of your life improves. Where every aspect of your life improves. And if you have any doubts about this, just go to the communities where people had the courage to walk away. And you'll see hundreds, thousands even, of people saying, I wish I'd done it sooner. I wish I'd had the courage to walk away earlier in my life, earlier in the process, before I got all wrapped up, because I did find another path. I did find another life. And I love this life so much more than the life I was in. We almost never hear stories about the person that had the courage to walk away from the unhealthy situation and they're like, wow, I regret it so much. I hope this has been helpful. We've covered a lot today. We went off into the weeds about many aspects that have to do with this trying to figure the other person out. But all this context matters. And this additional information about understanding the totality of the system and what's driving my psychology, only to spend 3 years of my life. This guy spent 3 years of my life trying to figure out that one, only to get to a singular day, a singular evening where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. This is too much. And I'll walk away anyway. And what was on the other side? A little bit of anxiety, a little bit of grief, a little bit of trying to figure my life out again, where I'm going to orient myself, which direction going to go. How do I focus my energy? Well, focusing the energy right here was really helpful. That was years ago. And I found a path to a better life. And you can too. It happens over and over and over again. It's very consistent. The outcome is unknown, but it is not uncertain. You will find a path, and your life will be better. Turn inward. Figure out yourself. Put your focus there. And stop trying to figure out that other person. Wish you the best. I believe in you. Peace.